mediation, if successful, the credit should always go to the parties. The mediator is not doing this for glory. Yeah? Mediators don't, this is in the past. Today is a little different. Some mediators do it for glory. If it's successful, they put it in their news reports. I successfully mediated this, and then you use this to go get funds from some funding agency, like the EU or World Bank or something. It's like a portfolio. So many mediators today in international mediation groups in Switzerland, Canada, they use successes to build up a portfolio. In the real meaning of mediation, you don't do this. The success comes because the two parties were willing to change and find some agreement, which isn't easy. And the mediator is just there to provide that. Okay? If it fails though, then you take the blame. It's not you take the blame by other people blaming you, they will blame you, but you're willing to take the blame. It's okay. You accept the blame, even though you might think the blame comes from one side of the people in dispute. They weren't being honest, they're lying, they're doing whatever. But you take the blame because the purpose is to hope that it will continue again. Once it fails, you try again. So you can see from this general view of what is mediation, it's a third party trying to help two parties live together peacefully with no objective in mind for themselves. Now, some people say, today's world, this is too romantic because mediators, when you mediate some big conflict, it has costs. You fly this person to that person, they can't talk in this country, you go to another country. There's lots of costs involved. And cost in high-level mediation requires you get funding. And so you need to build up some portfolio. This is sort of a contradiction. But if you do mediation at the levels of like village, communities, organizations, you don't need that. All you need maybe is costs you don't have to pay. The people who invited you, they have a meal, they'll provide the meal. You don't have to pay for everything. So mediation in today's world is a little different from in the past. But in general, it's the same, that you're doing this to hopefully build a more peaceful parts of the world, not the whole world, parts of the world, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to be sad if no one recognizes you, that you did anything. You just continue to. Now why? Why is mediation necessary? Now, like I said, there are many answers depending on the type, but let's just do some things. In general, the parties in dispute have feelings and emotions between each other that every time they try to settle it themselves, it turns into a fight. If you have two people in conflict or two groups, and they just try to settle it themselves, we usually call that negotiation. Just two sides negotiate, no third party involved. But sometimes that works. You know, the two sides, they negotiate, maybe they have a certain level of understanding of the conflict, understanding history, understanding themselves. They can talk to each other. Maybe they have two wise leaders or something. Then you don't need a third party mediator. But when do you need it? Why do you need it? Many times that's not possible. Every time the groups in dispute come together, after a few, maybe an hour even, they say, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And they start calling you names and things, this and that. So that's why you need mediation. And why, it's not just that if negotiation breaks down by itself, the people might not think you need a third party. But the second point up here, when the parties see, oh, the consequences are harmful, then maybe we need to try for mediation. So you have to not only know that you can't talk, you have to believe if you continue this way, it's not good. Both sides have to feel. Like if it's spouse, husband, wife, they might say, oh, if we continue this way, not a good family life for our children. So maybe we need a family mediator because we're worried about the children. If it's two villagers over some garbage dump, said we can't talk, no mediator, what happens? Garbage piles up. And that isn't, no one wants that. So you have to recognize that if we continue without solving it, the consequences we don't like. Both sides say we don't like that. So let's continue. At more high intensity, violent conflicts, the consequences are things like innocent people being killed by roadside bombs or something. So you have to say, oh, once you say, oh, this is why we need mediation, it has to be, we recognize the consequences are not good. You know, I'll just stop a while. I forgot to say at the beginning, I don't know what these sessions are like. Dr. Moon, have you been in some of these sessions? Yeah, like, do people just raise their hand and stop me to talk, or it's at the end, or what? At the end, oh, okay. So I'll keep talking. I'll leave time at the end, we can discuss any of these things. Okay, when is mediation? See, I went, what, why, when, who, I think it was. Actually, there's another one, how, but I took how out because it starts with H. I wanted only W's, so I know how, but I will talk about how. Okay, when is mediation? Oh, here comes the first story I will tell. All these stories are cases that I've been involved in mediation. One, when is mediation necessary? The first case maybe could be power imbalance. See, the problem with power imbalance when you have two groups in conflict is if you leave it to themselves and there's a power imbalance, it will never solve the problem because those in power will control the negotiation. And then those who have less power cannot fight, cannot argue, and then nothing will be solved. So in this case, mediation, third-party mediation, is there to take care of power imbalance. Now the third party, some people say if a mediator goes and tries to balance power between, some people say you're not being neutral. So some people say mediators have to be neutral. But neutral is neutral in the sense of not taking sides, but not neutral with respect to the situation that you think will help solve the problem, such as power imbalance, knowledge imbalance. Part of the job of the mediator is to make sure that there is no imbalance. Power is somewhat balanced, knowledge is the same, and that, in that sense, there's possibility. Let me explain with this Pak Mun Dam case. The Pak Mun Dam is one of the first environmental conflicts talked about all over the world. It's in northeast Thailand. You know, about 25 years ago was when the case, and all the NGOs, environmental NGOs around the world would come study it. NGOs in Thailand grew from that. The Assembly of the Poor, that's how the Assembly of the Poor in Thailand started, and other NGOs. What was the case here? The Moon is the name of a river, the Moon River. It's in Ubon Ratchathani, the province in northeast Thailand. The provincial electric authority wanted to build a dam to generate more electricity for Bangkok. So this happens in all countries. You disrupt something someplace for the purpose of someplace else that's far away, and they are not disrupted. It's not that it's bad generating electricity. As the world changes, you need more electricity. It's just the way to do it sometimes impacts people differently. And the people impacted most are the people who get the least use of it. It's usually. So what happened in the Bachman Dam case was the electrical provincial authority wanted to build a dam on the Moon River, but the place for the dam, it would completely flood a big village there. And dams will flood the village. So they had to try to talk to the people about, can we build a dam here? And we will take care of you some other way. The villagers said no. No dam here. Because not only do we like living here on the Moon River, we fish there also. So the Moon River has lots of fish. So to make the story short, the people said no. The people said no, but the authorities say, no one's ever said no to us before in Thailand. If you go to any village, you say something, they all say yes. Because if you don't do what they say, you're in trouble. You're not in trouble physically, they're not going to shoot you, but they will cause trouble. They won't register your baby when it's born. When you want to, do you raise your, what? I saw someone go like that. Oh. Okay. So, where was I now? Disrupted my train of thought. Okay, so the villagers said no. When the villagers said no, the state, in this time it wasn't the government, it's a state-run authority, elected, they didn't know what to do. So they're very confused. They're building the dam already. They need to move the people away because it'll flood. The people move themselves. They built a new village on the dam. Now it's a real problem, because now they can't do anything, because you have to dynamite parts of the river, and you're dynamiting the new village built on the dam. This was the beginning of conflict resolution in Thailand for the universities, actually. As you see, very recent. Conflict resolution is old as human beings, but a real study of it just started recently, and so the electrical generating authority came to universities and said, can you help us? We don't know how to do this. People won't listen to us now. We tell them go home, they said no, they won't go. What do we do? They said, we hear there's a subject, an area of study called conflict resolution. They do it in Canada and in Scandinavia, they do a lot of this. Can you do some of that? They asked, I was at Chulalongkorn University. So they said, can you do some of that? And none of us knew what they were talking about. I'm a mathematician and conflict resolution. So we said, okay, we'll try. The president of the university set up a committee to try to do it. So I was the co-chair of the committee. I went there. And the power imbalance was something like this. Like the first meeting we had between the villagers and the people from EGAT, Electoral Generating Authority, is like this. The EGAT people, all their papers and all, the plans for the dam, they sit around a table like this in their government official brown suit. And the villagers that came, they're all sitting like this. So I said, look, this doesn't sound right. It doesn't look good, even though I don't know anything about this. It just doesn't seem like it's going. So I asked the villagers why. They said they're afraid because they've never looked at people in power in their eyes. Usually they just listen. But now they feel something. They don't want to do this, but they don't know how to tell them, because they're not used to. They know everything. They have all the power. We can't do anything except we sit there. So in the discussion, the people who were building it also spoke in a way to make them feel they didn't know anything. Used big words, say, this is for the country, if you love your country, do this and that. And half the words they didn't understand, very long words. Makes them feel even less powerful, that they can't even understand the language. So the mediator's job is to fix this. To fix this, either rephrase the discussion in a language that's more comfortable, giving them a chance to talk. They will never raise their hands or interrupt power. You have the mediator has to say, what do you think now? And then if the ones that are more powerful want to interrupt, you say, no, it's not your turn. See, the mediator can do things like that. They go, no, it's time for the village head to talk now. So you try to create some, and then sometimes I would do things like this. I would try to show the electrical generating authority people that they actually had less knowledge than the villagers on some things. Because they would talk about the level. Once it's flooded, water will come up to a certain meter. So they have this length. And the villagers said no. So I asked the villagers to explain, and they go back in history. When the floods came, what happens? If it's flooded, where do the fish go? And they had lots of knowledge like this, just regular local wisdom that the people from Bangkok didn't know. So once you emphasize that, they feel a little better. They know something. They know something these very fancy people don't know. So this is the type of, but sometimes you still get some problems. One thing, since it's storytelling time, I will add to this story here. One time there was a place to meet for the final agreement or disagreement. See, meanwhile, what the people in power always do is they find, in a way, violent, but not violent in the sense of bombs or anything, but violence by proxy. So to people to work on the dam, they would hire villagers, people from the next village who aren't impacted. And they say, if you work here, we will give you a job and pay you a lot. So now the villagers who don't want the dam have to fight their neighbors. Because the neighbors want them off because they're getting paid by the... This is the usual way of people who do this. You don't fight directly, you hire another village to come fight this village. Okay, this is done throughout the world, this type of thing. And there are many other things that was a problem, things like, we'll build you a new village. And they started building the new village because this village would be dead. And they took the villagers to this new village. And they said, no, we don't want to live there. Now, what was the new village like? The new village, the houses were very nice, no leaking roofs, everything in there. So then we asked, why don't you want to live there? They said, the houses don't face each other. See, in our village, the houses must face each other, so when we sit in our house, we can talk to our neighbor. We just yell over and we see everyone. This is how our village works. We are in groups and we face each other. We don't turn our back to another house, then who do you talk to? There's no one. And so when we asked the electrical generating authority, did you think of this? They said no. I said, why did you ask them? When you designed the new village, why did you ask the people? They said, oh, we just thought it's a better house. Cleaner, better bathroom. Nothing to do with the relationships between people. It's just the house is better. Then the other reason, which was a really big reason, is they built the house in a place, the new village, such that to get to their fields, their rice farmers, you can't go directly now because of the dam, the reservoir. So to get to the fields, you have to go around. And it takes half a day. So they said, we go working in the morning, when we get there, we come back, because it takes half a day. These are very simple things that mediators if they were there before, they could suggest. When you do something, talk, ask. You know, when it's too late, well, the last part in this story I want to tell is sometimes, you know, those proverbs say the mediator, you have to put yourself in between. In the Pat Mundan case, at the final talks, they chose a place to meet that both were comfortable at. Because the villagers didn't want to go meet in a government office in the district. You know, there's too many police and stuff. So they chose another place. It was not really a school, but sort of like a local meeting place on top of a hill, and you have to go there by boat to get to that place, across the river. So it came the day, and the 3 or 4 leaders were getting in the boat, and they said, "Where are we going?" I said, "We're going over there. You see, that's where they're waiting for us to talk." And they said, "We're not going." After all this agreement that, okay, then when they looked, they said, "No." I was there with them, I asked why. They said, "They might shoot us while we're in the boat." See, because they're on shore over there. And if they shoot us while in the boat, we can't do anything. You know, because then it was lots of hard feelings on both sides. It was causing a lot of them. So finally they said, "There's one way we will go. You come with us and you stand in front of the boat, and we will be behind you. So if they want to shoot us, they have to shoot you first." And they said that. And I said, okay, because I don't think they're going to shoot them. But who knows, in some other situation, they might shoot. So I had no part, but as a mediator, you have to do things like that. Okay. So that's the power imbalance. This case of when is mediation necessary isn't really about power imbalance. It's about managing resources and time. ADR is nothing about villages, it's a court system. Alternative dispute resolution. In many countries, not just countries like Thailand, and everywhere around the world, there are too many cases that pile up in court and not enough judges. So whenever you have a case that goes adjudication, remember adjudication is you can't solve it, negotiate, so you go to court and you let the judge, you argue before the judge and the judge. But in many places there are not enough judges, and so some of these cases you wait 3-4 years. It's called a backlog case. You file a case in court, they won't come to court for 3 years. So what was developed was this thing. ADR says the court appoints a mediator so that the people who are bringing a case to court, you try to solve it through mediation first before you go to court, just to save time. Because it just makes it doesn't work all the time. But this has become a big part of mediation. I went to a mediation, gave a lecture at a mediation. It's not really a workshop because it was 9 months. The government officials met every Friday for 9 months. So it's a very detailed thing. But then when I went in, I looked at the curriculum. It was all ADR because it was run by former judges. So ADR is a very special type of mediation, but it doesn't cover things like I mentioned, like family disputes, village disputes. ADR is once it gets to court, the court says try mediation, it'll be faster. You don't have to go through witnesses and all these cases. So when you say when is mediation necessary, in general, these 2 reasons I gave is 1, there's some problem in the situation, power imbalance, knowledge imbalance. The other, it just takes too much time not to use it. It helps alleviate the waiting time to solve disputes. So those are the whens that I'm mentioning here. Now, who does the mediation? This is probably the most interesting question. Who can mediate? And who does mediation? How to find a third party to mediate? You see, first of all, like I mentioned before, mediation comes when both parties agree to invite a third party to try to help solve it. So both have to agree on the person who's coming to mediate. It can't be one person say, yeah, I want this person to mediate, and the other person says, no, I don't like him. Then they can't do it. It has to be a third party that both sides agree with at the beginning. Whether they agree later, who knows? They might see something and they don't like him anymore. Then they just dismiss it, because you come at the invitation of the parties. Now, how do you find this third party? See, I asked you, are mediation certificates acceptable? See, in certain cultures, all you need is a certificate. And people believe. People believe in knowledge in some cultures. There are many institutions that have give a certificate program, let's say a 1-year program, on being a mediator. And you graduate with a piece of paper that says you are a certified mediator. Just like you're a certified electrician or plumber, it means you can do that work and not harm the people. That's what the certificate means. Now, like I said earlier, mediation is so different that these programs, now you have to have certificates for a special type of mediator. Like, I am a certified family mediator. That doesn't mean I can go mediate conflicts in the village, just family disputes, because I went to that type of program. I have a certificate. Or I'm a certified mediator for school situations. Administrators, teachers, things like that, parents and teachers. They're very specialized. It becomes like special. You're not just a doctor, you're a skin doctor. You only take care of skin diseases. You can't do anything else. Nothing inside, like throat. So if you become specialized like that, mediators become specialized. Now, as they become specialized, some countries, some institutions, all they need to know to answer this question, who should we invite as a mediator, is that mediator has a piece of paper. You don't have to know them. You never have to see a picture of them or anything. You have to know their credentials. Many places I've been in, like I was on the board of directors of a high school once in Bangkok. Big problem between the administrators and the teachers. Everyone says, let's get a mediator. They contacted a mediation center in the United States. Please send us a mediator that mediates school situations. They send a name, it's fine, take it, because he had a certificate. But if you do that in other places, like many of the situations I worked in Thailand, doesn't work. Papers doesn't mean anything. See, a third party that you're giving your future to, you're handing your future to this third party mediator to help solve your life problems, a paper won't do. Say, I am certified, no. They'll say, I want to know you. Come and talk to us. Or maybe I already know you, some elder person from somewhere in the society. So in certain cultures, who does the mediation is very different answer. Some cultures, you believe in knowledge transfer, and they went and studied certain mediation, and now they're qualified. Some cultures, then why is that the case? Because look what I wrote here in parentheses. Healing broken bodies versus healing broken relationships. See? Healing broken bodies are doctors and nurses. You break your arm, you break your leg, you do these type of things. A certificate is enough. I graduated from medical school. I know how to do orthopedics. I can fix your leg. Broken relationships is very different. Broken relationships, to heal them, what do you have to know? What do you have to know in order to heal broken relationships between individuals or groups of people or movements? What are the types of things first, as a mediator, you have to understand what is it to honor someone? Because mediation, lots of times, the parties have to show they honor the party that they're in dispute with. You have to build up this level of dialogue. But what does it mean to honor someone? Is this a universal concept? Everyone talks about honoring someone, but it's very different in different cultures. In one culture, honoring someone means offering something, maybe food or something. In another culture, honoring someone means doesn't have anything to do with that. It might have anything to do like letting them decide things, is decision making. So honoring, insulting, these are all the things that have to do with a relationship being broken. And when a mediator wants to heal a broken relationship, they need to know how relationships are broken and healed in that context. And you might have a certificate from Sweden that you're a certified mediator, but you don't know how relationships are broken or healed in Myanmar. I mean, like, so different. So the question is, who does the mediation is not an easy question to answer, because it's not just cultures or countries, it's actually the parties in dispute. You know, if you have a government office in dispute with some villagers, you have two cultural things going on. You have the authority and the culture of being in the power and authorities, and you have the culture, local culture. And both of those things are different in terms of how you say something that makes them feel good. It's different. So you have to heal those things. You know, some people say, I can make fun of you, because to me that isn't insulting. You know, some rural villages, making fun is part of having fun. You even make fun of things that in other groups you think, oh, that's horrible. Like, this, oh, you're short, or you're skinny, or look at this or that, or some places it's not making fun, it's just saying things, and you're not meaning anything by it. Like, you don't mean to look down on them. But in other places you do that, and it's very bad. You know, sometimes when I was young, I used to listen to the news report, the Thai news reports. At that time, it was before everyone listens to their own news program online. It's just 4 or 5 channels. And I listened to them give the news, and I wondered, there's some countries, if they listen to this, they couldn't take it. They will either file a court case against them, the way they talk about, oh, look at that person coming up. You don't even need a light, you can see him because he smiled, and you saw his teeth. And, you know, people maybe in the South, the Malay, darker people. And this is normal. And people are wondering, what? How can you talk like that on a public sphere? And then that's insulting. But the people who hear it don't feel insulted. They're just, people talk like that. Oh, you're tall and skinny like a ghost or something like this. It's some places, insulting and honoring are very different. So a mediator, when you invite someone to do mediate, you need to know these type of things. Now, here's another very interesting question is, can outsiders be effective mediators? Lots of times people say mediation, you need a neutral person, so you have to have someone who doesn't know the people who are in dispute. They're not friends with this side or that side, they don't know the situation, they just come in with their paper that says they're a certified mediator, and then they start mediating. This is like outsiders. Long ago, at the beginning of this type of work, people said outside mediation is the best, because you're not part of all the history of it. But then, when people started using outside mediation, it became a problem because outsiders are too outside. They don't even know what actions mean of people. They don't understand anything. They only understand their own situation. But if you, an outside mediator from a situation very different, then there's a problem. The case here, I think I've told about this case to someone, I can't remember if it's in the MA class. If it's the MA class, then you all learned it, because this is almost all MA class. Did I tell you this already? Or was it the PhD students? I don't know. I'll go ahead and say, I will tell the story again. Yeah, so this is the Yadana pipeline case. Yadana pipeline is you're bringing in natural gas across Burma into the western border at Kanchanaburi, into Thailand, into the Gulf of Thailand. So you have to build a pipeline. And in the pipeline, this was the problem. The side of Myanmar, you had to come through places that were mined, and minefields. Sort of like on the side of Cambodia. So the people, the company that was building this, had the protection of the state, and the state had to make sure they could build this without being blown up by the mines. So what they used was human minesweepers. So you get the villagers who lived around it, and you have them walk in front of the group that's building this pipeline, and if there's a mine, they get blown up. And this was documented. And it comes up into Three Pagoda Pass at Kanchanaburi, at Sangkhatpuri. So that wasn't Thailand's problem then, it was on the other side, but the people had questions about this pipeline. But then came the part where you enter into Thailand, and it enters right at an elephant preserve in the forest, and also a big village. So the villagers said, no, we don't let this pipeline come through here. And people from Bangkok would go, the human rights organizations, NGOs would go out, help them chain themselves to the trees so you can't cut down the trees. The usual type of thing. But this was such a big project that the government, project is run by PTT, Petroleum Authority of Thailand. And it's such a big project, it was giving energy for the future, that they had to do it. You can't stop, you must do it. And so they said, now what are we going to do? This was a little bit after Pak Mun Dam time. So they said, okay, we need a mediator between PTT and the villagers. We don't have any mediators in Thailand. We want an outside expert mediator, because there's no one here who can do that. So they went in and hired outside mediators for Canada. 3 very expert, very senior people had done lots of mediation in Canada. This is from Victoria in the western part of Canada. And they had lots of environmental conflicts in that setting though, that they did. So they came here and mediated, and to make the story short, complete failure. Complete failure because they didn't understand the people. They understood the Petroleum Authority of Thailand because those are technocrats. Some of them studied in the West, they understand how to have a meeting, how to have an agenda, how to follow the agenda, how to sign agreements, very normal. They could work with that side. But the villagers in Sangkra didn't understand this whole process. Their understanding of mediation or trying to solve a conflict, you just sit around and talk. Then when you can't talk, you stop, come back again, try to talk. No process. Process is actually against the way of thinking of their life, because their life does not have process. the life follows the rhythms of nature where they're living, not some process set by some office or something. So what happened here was, one time, just to take one part of it so I can get through to the other slides, they asked everyone to agree, sign their names and say, what did we agree today? And tomorrow, we'll continue, so we don't waste time. This is process of mediation. Process is you talk, you agree, everyone signs. This is a normal way of people doing it in some countries. Tomorrow, continue from there. Get to it, sign, next, and then it goes. It's very systematic. So they did this, and they signed one day, came back the second day, the villagers want to do the same thing all over. And then these mediators from Canada, I was there not as a mediator, I was there to help translate things like that. They asked me, why won't they? They already agreed. Why now do they want to go back? They're very frustrated, these three expert mediators. So I asked the villagers, the mediator said, you signed yesterday. Why do you want to go back? They said they didn't agree, they just signed that they agreed. And that signing that you agree is different from agreeing. So I told them, the mediators, I said, but how can signing that you agree be different from agreeing? Doesn't signature mean that? They said, no. I said, what does it mean? And they had a very detailed explanation. Signing that you agree means that it's time for you to go home. I can't stay around anymore. It's 5 o'clock, the chickens are running out. I have to get back to the village, put the chickens and my buffaloes away. That's what signing means. It doesn't mean agreeing, it means time to go now. So this went on for a week, and then the mediators left. They told the Thai government, I'm sorry, this is too difficult. I can't do this, I'm not used to. But it wasn't it's not so much as it was difficult, it's just people didn't realize that mediation involves knowing the context of the dispute. It's actually quite simple, if you think about it. If you don't know, you can't mediate. Because mediating is supposed to make people feel comfortable and change their minds, maybe compromise, see other things that are better, look to the future. If you don't know their future or their thinking, you can't do anything. So this is an example of who does the mediation. It's very. Now some people have said, let's use insider mediators. That is very big now, especially in southern Thailand. People say, in Pattani, let's use insiders. And many other countries are now going to inside mediation. What does inside mediation mean? Inside mediation says, takes account of the fact that you have to understand the context, so you can't go outside. It's not like a doctor. But the problem with insider mediation is, since you understand it so well, and you live there, you probably have a position. Whether you're very outspoken or not, you have a position in your heart. And then what happens, Suppose like there are human rights violations as it involved, and the insider mediation knows those violations. See, an outsider might not know that these violations take part in the torturing in the prison, let's say. You have to have this information. If you don't, you don't know it. Then when you do, you're no longer really impartial because you're against that, because you have a certain position as an insider. Sometimes you try not to have any position, but almost no human being doesn't have a position. They have a position, do you know, this is off this, it's not part of this, but I just tell this joke. But do you know grooks? Do you know what grooks are? Grooks. Grooks are these short sayings. They're sort of funny, but they're very wise. And by a Danish philosopher, mathematician, humorist. and he would write books, and there are these short sayings that somehow gets to the to reality of life. Like one saying would say something like, "Why is it always when you've lost one sock, you only have one sock? So you throw it away, and as soon as you throw it away, you find the other sock." You know? And so, things like that. It's about life, and he writes. But there's one thing he said was like this. He said, if you have no position, if you think you have no position on something, A or B, toss a coin. You can try this. I've tried this. I think he's right. You toss a coin, and you say, if it comes up heads, I will choose A. If it comes up tails, I would choose B. And you say, I don't care if it's A or B. You know? But I have to choose something. And he says, as soon as you toss the coin, immediately you realize you're hoping it turns up heads or tails. In your heart, oh, I hope it's A. So really you do have a preference between A or B. You just don't know it. So in insider mediation, the problem is, can you be impartial? And this is sort of like, maybe impartial is okay if it's towards like human rights violations. You know, you don't want to say, oh, it doesn't matter, violating human rights is okay, respecting human rights is okay, either way is no. You can't have that position because that was the cause of the conflict in the first place. Sometimes, who does the mediation, I've found, is the need for team mediation. Lots of times we talk about mediation and you might be involved sometime. It looks like a person, a mediator, one. If it's a team of people from the same organization. They help think. But team in this sense that I'm talking about, that I've found sometimes is necessary, is maybe like two people who are different, but they both respect each other, but they have different backgrounds. It's not two people from the same organization. It's just two people who are different. And what happens is one side is closer to one side of the dispute, and the other one is closer to the other side. But close in this sense doesn't mean they're part of the conflict. Close means they worked with them and they respect them. A case here once was, very recently, those of you who were in Thailand, when the university students protested on the streets, and some of them were about the monarchy, some of them were about different types of laws, and the security officials would do certain things to stop them. You know, or get high-powered water hoses, chase them away, put some loud music that hurts your ears, some noise. These are the usual things that you try to disperse crowds. And there was the chance of some violent contact between them. So I was there with another person I worked very closely with, who was a former Secretary General of the National Security Council. So the security people trusted him. They don't think he's going to sell out the country or anything like treason, because he used to be head of that. He's just retired now. And I'm from the academia. I knew many of the students. They sort of said, oh, okay, John Mark, he's okay. I guess he's not going to harm us too much, something like that. And then when we worked together, we were able to have the security officials talk to the students, because each of us was able to convince each of the sides separately. If I had talked to the security officials, none of them would listen to me. They'd say, oh, John Mark, you're just troublemaker, you want to hurt the country, whatever it is. But if the other person wanted to talk to the students, they'll say, you're just part of the establishment. They won't listen. So sometimes, in mediation, depending on the case, it might be good to find someone different from you, but also wants to solve the problem. So this would be another concept of team mediation. Now, the problem is, Okay, I wanted to stop so we could have time to talk, but I have 2 more slides. So I'll go very fast and then we can. What happened at 11:30 that I must stop?
Yeah, and
What?
that you will go to another, our department head. We have lunch.
Oh, lunch. Oh, that's okay. Late lunch is okay. No problem. Okay. So, mediating intractable conflicts. This is probably the most difficult thing if you ever have to mediate conflicts that are called intractable. Intractable means both sides have different goals, ultimate goals. And it's going to be very difficult as a mediator to get them to come together on some agreement, since the ultimate goals are opposite. Not just different, they actually contradict each other. When I spoke about conflicts like, let's say, maybe domestic conflict, husband, wife, and I said, why? They said, oh, we both love our children. So we want our children to have a healthy life. That becomes a shared goal. They have other goals they might disagree on, how to spend their spare time, but they have a shared goal. The villages with the garbage problem, they have a shared goal. They want to live their life where the smell is not too strong all day. No one wants to, it's just they don't want it near them. So if you have shared goals, sometimes a mediator can help suggest ways to achieve the shared goal. But what happens when you have conflict and the goals there are no shared goals? It's like the ultimate goal is a goal where the parties are completely different. Okay. The parties have different sacred values. Usually goals come from your values. What do you think is important in your life? And your most sacred value are the ones that give you your ultimate goals. And if 2 parties in conflict have opposite sacred values that can't coexist, then what does a mediator do? For example, because they're different, they understand peaceful solutions differently. See, why did they come for mediation in the first part? Both sides said, we want a peaceful solution. Okay, that's a nice word, peaceful solution. But concretely, what is a peaceful solution? And when you unpack the meaning of peaceful solution, and it turns out opposite each other, then that's the problem of an intractable conflict. I will tell you the case of Patani conflict right now, because it's still ongoing. And why is it so difficult to mediate, or why do peace talks always fail for the last 20 years? They start, fail, start, fail. Doesn't matter if the facilitator is Malaysia or INGO, a peace INGO in Switzerland. Doesn't matter what it is, always fails. Why is that? I think, this is my own idea, because both sides, the Thai government and the Patani movement, understand a peaceful solution differently. See, one side says a peaceful solution is this, take the Thai state, Thai government. A peaceful solution to the South is 2 things. 1, no violence, meaning no bombs in the marketplace, burning side, no violence, no overt violence, that's number 1. Number 2, people there are happy to live under the Thai constitution and respect the laws and everything. And they will be within the framework. They can suggest things if they want change, but not to be outside. Now, what is a peaceful solution for the Patani rebels? Number 1 is the same, no violence. They want to live, they don't want the children to be afraid to go to school, no violence. They don't want dark visits at night, like security people who take them, no, we don't want that. But number 2, what is a peaceful solution? A peaceful solution is where they're living as Thai citizens, but they have the freedom to criticize the Thai constitution and change, maybe have more self-governance, change Article 1, even be free to discuss independence without being thrown in jail. So peaceful solution doesn't mean independent. It just means freedom to discuss it. This is what they will say always. Now, these two things are goals which each side won't accept. There's no way that the Thai government will accept that type of peaceful solution, and there's no way the movement will accept the other type, meaning a peaceful solution. So every time you have peace talks and the mediators mediating here, you come to a suggestion, like the most recent one, there's a suggestion. I won't get into too much detail, there's no time. And both sides weigh this suggestion. What if we do this? It looks like we are agreeing, but what if we do this? Will this lead to a peaceful solution in my meeting? Each side will think that. And if it doesn't lead to one way, like there's one suggestion on the table now that says there will be public consultations where both sides can travel and talk to the people about what their dreams are for the future. Now the Thai government doesn't like that. We don't want people to express their dreams about the future. It might be against the Constitution or something. So as soon as you do that, then they pull out from the talks. Now there are no talks right now. Because every time it gets close, the problem is it's not a peaceful solution to one side or the other. Now the question, since this isn't a talk on the conflict, it's a talk on mediation. My question is, what do mediators do in a situation like this? What do mediators do when two sacred values of each side contradict each other? Like there's no way of achieving. Like one sacred value could be, my cultural identity is very important, Malay Muslim. The other side's sacred value is there can be no other cultural identities in Thailand except the Thai Buddhist identity. Well, those two can't coexist, those two things. One, it says, my sacred value is to make sure there are no other sacred values. This has been drummed into me, especially the military academies. They say this, all the generals, we must protect the sacred value, no other sacred values are allowed. Other values can have to be lesser than sacred. Like, you can do things in your house or something like that. So what does a mediator do? First thing, I think, mediator raises this point and encourages the parties to talk that their sacred values are different, to talk about it. I have tried this, complete failure. Every time I suggest this, both sides don't want to talk about this. That their sacred values are different, especially the Thai government, they don't want it. Because they are in charge of the country, everyone must have the same sacred value. So if you say that it's different, it's almost admitting that peace will not be possible here. It's almost like that. And then you might suggest, which in any country, in any culture, I think this is difficult, but I think this is what nature is telling Homo sapiens to do. Get a meta value that's above culture. Accept a meta value that has to do with common humanity. See, if mediators run into something very difficult, you really have to go to another level beyond cultural values and go to humanity, common humanity. Then it's the values that come from evolution, from 100, 200,000 years, a million years, and humans are the same. But you have to, the difficulty here for mediators is you have to step beyond the cultural values. Many places in the world have suggested this over time, that maybe the answer is to understand the cultural values and then let it go. Put it down. Still respect it, you're part of that culture, but not let that be your deepest, your most sacred. Your most sacred value is your human being. Now, how to do this? It becomes like mediating is sounding spiritual now. And you have to know how to speak this way with people who are fighters, who are carrying arms and are shooting each other. How do you speak to them about spiritual values like this? You have to learn how. You can do it. Most of these people believe something deeply, else they wouldn't be giving up their life and running for 30 years in the jungle and never seeing their mother who's dying. They have to believe something deeply. So these are actually spiritual people. Whether you're a soldier or a rebel, you believe something, else you wouldn't be doing that. So you have to tap into that part and ask questions like this. If you want to go through things like religion, it's a very interesting research project. The concept of common humanity that's hidden in different religions. Not the sacred texts that show how they're different, the part of the text that show how people are the same. They're there. In Buddhism, we're all friends in the cycle of birth, aging, sickness, and death. It doesn't matter what you believe. See, it goes above that. We are humans. We go through that. We're all sons of God, children of God, in theistic religion. There is that level of common humanity you have to tap into. But culture is such a strong hold on people that you have to break through that concrete. And not disrespect culture, just understand how it came about and put it down on the side. The perils of mediation. Oh, I thought it was almost the end. It's not. Late lunch. What is for lunch, do you know? Is it okay if it's not hot? You go with a little, okay. Some of these things are just, you can look up. Oh, I don't know, how does this, will you share this PowerPoint with students?
Yeah.
So they can look up these references. See, there's this book, very interesting book, it's called The Mediation Dilemma. This is only like 10, 12 years ago. Look it up. The dilemma that Beardsley is talking about is a dilemma we find all the time, and I think you find in Myanmar, you've seen these things happen. The dilemma is this: mediation, by its very nature, works best in achieving negative peace. Negative peace means ceasefires. You're stopping overt violence. People don't like the violence, everyone's having trouble living, so you sign something. You can mediate peace agreements. In fact, peace mediators like to do this. Their goal is, we got the parties to sign a peace agreement. This is part of the portfolio. But those are all negative peace. You're achieving negative peace, no violence. What happens in most of these cases, it doesn't last for many different reasons, and then the violence starts again. Because people agree to ceasefires and negative peace for many different reasons. Sometimes they're just tired. Sometimes the fighters need more weapons. They need a time to stop so they can gather weapons. Sometimes they just need to breathe. The people can't breathe. Sometimes the government needs some points for an election or something. So they sign a peace agreement. There are many reasons you sign it, but it never lasts. So the dilemma is that, what do mediators do? If you do mediation, you usually end up with this type of agreement, a negative peace, but not positive peace. But if you don't mediate at all, the fighting goes on. So the dilemma is, let it keep going or stop it temporarily. And this is the part where people are arguing that we were talking last year about give war a chance. if you stop it temporarily and it starts again like before, that's okay. You got to breathe for 6 months. But if you stop it temporarily and when it starts again, it's worse. Now you have to really think, what is better? To continue and try to have it play out at this level, or to have peace 6 months and then it gets even worse because people have more weapons, more backing. It's not easy question. So, possible way out of this dilemma. You know, if you think a bit about this, what Beardsley is saying, it's a dilemma of mediation for certain types of mediation. It's not a dilemma for mediation like village quarrels or something. That's okay. You can get to the end. So it's mostly about violent conflicts. Possible way out is to try to find a way to mediate towards positive peace. Now it sounds almost impossible. Because positive peace doesn't come through agreement by two parties who are fighting. It comes from society agreeing to change. Change, be more open, change the governance forms, change laws. It isn't something that can be done at a mediation. So somehow to tie in mediation with positive peace is a challenge for the peace building community. There's no answer yet now. I'm not sure how to. And then last slide is there. Besides everything that I've tried to touch upon, there are other forms of mediation that are very specific. I'll just mention one. This is John McConnell's book that some of you might be familiar with. It's called Mindful Mediation, a handbook for Buddhist peacemakers. You can find this online when you get this. See, but McConnell, he's not a Buddhist, he's a Quaker activist who worked with the Buddhist research centers here in Thailand for a long time. And he wrote this book about 25, 30 years ago. When the book was launched, I spoke at the launching. He's a friend of mine, and it was at Chulalongkorn University then. And it gives step-by-step, very detailed steps suggesting how do you mediate a conflict in this sense, in this Buddhist sense. But it goes something, he uses things like this. When you mediate a conflict, be mindful that the cause of conflict is greed, hate, and delusion in the parties of the conflict. It's not like they're evil people. It's they're weak like all human beings are weak. These are the defilements in all human beings. And it shows up sometimes and you get into conflicts like that. And the way out of resolving the conflicts, though his book is very detailed, is you have to get the people to realize this, that it's not, why do you hate that person, the person you're in? It's because of something in yourself. Because of something in yourself, you hate them. Why do you hate, what is nationalism? It's misplaced pride, it's delusion. The delusion that your nation is greater than other nations. And this is the type of things he will talk about. Now the question is, can you do this? I asked him there at the launching, can you do this type of mediation when the people in dispute are not Buddhists? They don't accept this framework of greed, hate, and delusion. It could be true, but they don't accept it. So what do you do as a mediator that's very hands-on, practical? He said, it's the reason you can't get along with them is you yourself have a delusion about something. And they might say, what are you talking about? What is this delusion thing? I don't have, you think that this is important and it's not. Now the question is, can you do this? It's a challenge. He accepted it was a challenge, but he said, Mindful Mediation, a handbook for Buddhist peacemakers, it sounds like the book sounds like the mediator is Buddhist. But do the people in conflict have to be Buddhist if you follow the steps? He wasn't sure about that. Because you might know, as a mediator, you might believe in the makeup of all human beings. And you believe in this greed, hate, delusion, cause of all suffering. But if someone doesn't believe that, but you do, can you use your belief to help solve their conflict? Like if they believe something, no, I must fight them because I'm doing it to save their souls for God. Suppose one side says that. Like if you talked about this during the Crusades, you started talking to one side about this, wouldn't work in the Crusades because they're fighting for another reason. So it's not clear. And then the biggest question for this form was, besides, might be useful even with Buddhist set context for interpersonal conflicts. But suppose you have high intensity conflicts, liberation struggles between two groups and they're both Buddhist. In a Buddhist country, Sri Lanka, Myanmar. Does it work? Because how do you use greed, hate, and delusion in a group setting? This group feels something about this group. Does a group have a delusion, or do individuals have delusions? So the question about mediating group conflicts becomes a problem maybe. But this is just, I just mentioned this because I think it's good to know there are many forms of mediation, not just the general things you find in classrooms and in textbooks. There are these types of Buddhist mediation, and there could be many other types of mediation. And as a general reference, this is a pretty good book if you look at conflict mediation across cultures, especially for this, because many stories. This is full of stories from this place. Okay, finally. Okay. If you haven't, is there time for questions or not? No.
Yeah, we have maybe a few minutes for questions. What is it? We have a few minutes for questions. Maybe Chen, you speak without opening the mic or just close it.
Just now, did I use the mic?
Okay. Okay, so let me call any questions you have. Please raise your hand. Yeah, please.
Thank you for your presentation. It is worthwhile to listen about it. I myself participate as observer, journalist, long-term peace process. It may be enlightened why such protectors process drawn into the vicious circle. Thank you. I want to know one thing is what elders' role in mediation. Elders.
This would fit into the part of who mediates, right? And in some societies, in some culture, elders have no role. Elders are old people who have Alzheimer's or something, so they can't be mediators. They don't know anything. We want young professionals with pieces of paper. That's some. But there are other cultural contexts, only elders. We only want them. I've found many places that only want elders. And that's because the belief that elders first have a long life. They have seen when people get angry and don't get angry at many different levels. And they know how to suggest. The second thing, though, for your question, is elders where? Usually when people use elders, it has to be elders that the people know. Not elders from some strange country that might be very old, but don't know anything. So the concept of elders doing mediation is first wise because They live through a lot of life. Second, they have your best interests at heart, hopefully, most elders. And third, they know the context. So there are many places that only use elders council, and things like that. But I don't know of any group, to answer your question, that sees the roles of elders as important just because they're elder. Like you can find an old person, like in Thailand, and find an old person from Brazil. I don't know. It isn't just being an elder. It's being an elder in the context of the conflict. I have just one other little part to add to your question there. I have had an experience where there's a conflict and the people ask for elders to come and the state says no because they say the elders will not understand the new dreams of the society, new values. They want to always go back to the past. So some people think like that.
Any more questions? Yeah, please. Two more. You can speak loud enough.
Professor, I really like when you said the mediators are like a phrase, both sides want over it, that even that then reaches others.
Can you speak louder? Ajambat cannot hear you.
Okay.
Maybe you come here. Why don't you come here? So that everyone can hear you.
Okay.
Firstly, I would like to thank to the sharing to Professor. I really like when you said mediators are like a bricks. Both sides want over is better what lets each other. It made me think about something I want to ask. In the case you show, especially the one or the two sides have totally different or even opposing scale value. So I would like to, because I understand that ceasefire can give people time to breathe, but the core issues being the same. The conflict just can be so calm, mediator, particularly both sides to think both long side of instead of just thinking and agreements or living is there. Thank you.
Difficult, I don't know. But what I usually, in my own life, what I've found is the first step towards solving something difficult is to accept that it's difficult, to know that it's difficult, and not to think it's easy, and then you don't solve it and you just stop. But if you look at it and you accept that it's difficult, in some ways you can consider, from a mediated standpoint, but even from the standpoint of those who are talking, that it becomes a challenge. See, whenever something is difficult, you want to try to solve it because it's a challenge. How could you solve it? But you must see, so in the case where you were talking about, what I have tried to do is, if there are two different sacred values, and mediate and finding a solution is difficult, what I first try to do always, even now, and next week I'm going to one thing, is get them to see that it's difficult. Get them to understand that the reason why these peace talks are not working is it's difficult. It's not because the other side has some agenda or is lazy or evil people or anything like that. All that could be part of it. Like some people say, oh, the government won't solve the conflict in the South because the budget will disappear. The budget is so high and everyone. That could be true. The budget is high and you keep getting more, but that's not the reason. The reason you can't is it's difficult. So people have to see that. So the most I can do to answer you is the first step is try to show that it's why it's difficult. once you show, even during the short-term ceasefire, 6 months, 8 months, some people will use that time, besides gathering weapons or whatever, or doing PR with the UN or whatever. Some people will use that time to think about how to get over this difficult time.
One last. Please come up. Yes.
Thank you so much for presentation. And I also want to know how we can get justice by doing mediation.
Okay, we go.
How we get a justice,
Justice.
yeah, by doing mediation. You also present and highlight we have also other solution or resolution. So which method or which resolution is more match on our Myanmar situation? Yeah, thank you.
For that last question, I will let you answer. Or everyone here who's from Myanmar. I can't answer that. But now that I forgot the question. Oh, justice, the problem with justice and mediation is it's the same like peace. People understand it differently. See, people understand what is a peaceful solution differently, depending on their values, their real people. And justice is no different. You know? Those of you who have studied this with me before on justice, like Dr. Monmon, is justice itself depends on traditions. And there are many traditions of justice. Is justice fairness? Is justice giving something to someone who has no food? Is justice giving something to someone who can do a lot with it? Like play. There are many meanings of justice. So your question is a good question, but it has to be clear what justice you're trying to achieve. And then what happens usually is both sides are trying to achieve justice in different meanings to them, just like peace. So it's good to know how difficult it is, like I said, but it doesn't solve it because there's no one view of justice. And that's the problem with justice. So you must, if it's in one context even, like in Myanmar, is there a universal notion of justice?
No.
No. Some people want the Universal Declaration to be a universal notion of justice, and many parts of the world accept it, but many parts don't. There are other views of what justice is, not individual rights. So it's a difficult. What was the second?
Second one is any method that anyone can apply.
Oh, okay. That one you tell me when you found it. But you see, with these methods, it's very interesting. Some people say part of studying in peace studies and mediation is to learn about different types of mediation that has worked out. You know, it's like lots of case studies. But the problem with that I've found is that there are many cases you can find in South America and Africa, ways to do mediation, traditional ways, that worked well, but don't work now because the world changes. You know, so mediation where one variable is social media, that's building up things in people, is very different from mediation 100 years ago. So there are many things. So if you want to take something from the past, you need to adjust it to make it fit with the things that are happening in today's world. So I don't know if you can get any one way to do it. It isn't like I was saying, it's not a science that you have a method and you teach it and everyone uses it and rice grows. Not like that. You know, it's something that has. So in Myanmar, I've always thought it's very difficult because it's not one context. It's not like Myanmar is different from Sweden. It's like this part of Myanmar is different from this part of Myanmar. It's like within Myanmar, it's a world of difference. And that is the challenge, I think, for Myanmar, when there's so many different contexts within the country to how to do justice and peace.
Okay, thank you so much for all your participation, joining workshop today, and thanks especially Ataman for sharing concept of mediation and your practical your own experience about mediation in the field. So that's very enlightening for us. And yeah, please don't forget to join us for lunch at the department. And thanks everyone to take participation here. Yeah, let's have a group photo after. Yeah. Let's have a